Yo guys, what's going on? My name's Chris. Welcome to the channel. Today, I am going to talk about what Bill Gates, the co-founder of Microsoft, says about the Metaverse. Quote, Metaverse will host most of your office meetings within the next 2 to 3 years, end quote. On this show, I'm going to talk about and explain what Gates says, but more so going to give you my insight on how that applies to you if you work remotely for a job and specifically if you're an entrepreneur. Do me a favor before we get started, smash that like button. Let's get into the show. All right, guys, this is super important, and I'm going to read to you what Bill Gates has to say specifically about the metaverse first. I do a lot of this on this show now. What I'm going to do specifically with this episode is give you a lot of insight into what I see and think after we discuss what Gates says, because that's what's most important. Within the next 2 to 3 years, I predict most virtual meetings will move from 2D camera grids to the metaverse, a 3D space with digital avatars. Gates writes in his blog post. That two-dimensional grid view Gates describes, in which he likens to the game show Hollywood Squares, is what you currently get with most video conferencing platforms like Zoom and Microsoft Teams. Meanwhile, in the metaverse, you would have a 3D avatar that would be able to attend meetings in a virtual office space or other destinations where it could interact with your coworkers' avatars. The idea is that you will eventually use your avatar to meet with people in a virtual space that replicates the feelings of being in an actual room with them, Gates says. But awkwardly, Gates says users will have to wear virtual reality headsets and/or goggles to do so. Gates, who stepped down from Microsoft's board in 2020, adds that his former company is working on adding 3D avatars and other metaverse-friendly elements to its Teams workplace software. And Teams might even have a clear on-ramp to the metaverse now that Microsoft is partnering with Mark Zuckerberg and Meta, commonly known as Facebook, to make the latter's workspace social network for business compatibility with Teams. Of course, Gates notes that it will take time and willingness from users and their employees before his vision for the virtual workspace in the metaverse becomes reality. First of all, tech companies like Meta and even gaming platforms like Microsoft's own Minecraft are still developing the virtual worlds that make up the metaverse. Gates also admits in order to accurately capture your expressions, body language, and the quality of your voice, people need expensive tech devices like VR headsets and maybe even motion capturing gloves. There's still some work to do, but it won't be long before the metaverse is making remote work feel like less remote, Gates says. And to close this out, Gates says, we're approaching a threshold where the technology begins to truly replicate the experience of being together in the office. All right, so guys, listen. Microsoft and Facebook are teaming up to develop metaverse worlds. All right, they're the two biggest players in developing the metaverse, arguably, and they're working together. All right. So Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates, the co-founder of Microsoft, are saying, hey, this is what's going to happen over the next 1 to 10 years. What that means is what they say is what's actually going to happen, whether we want to accept it or not. Gates is the co-founder of Microsoft, who's a key player in developing the metaverse. Whatever Gates writes is actually going to happen. Just like I said, whether we like it or not. And a lot of people might be opposed to this, but this is what's going to happen. So embracing it is going to be critical. specifically if you're an employee and you work remotely, okay, for your company, this is directed at you. The article that we just quoted and has written is directed at remote employees, saying that over the next 2 to 3 years, the majority of your remote meetings will be on Metaverse. So my recommendations to you are, if you work remotely for your company, is this, okay? As an employer, I'm giving you recommendations to be open to this technology because it's coming, right? If you're open and your boss sees that you're open about this, your boss is going to notice this. The owner of the company, your manager, whoever it might be, your leader is going to notice this. And if you have an open growth mindset around this, you're going to be leaps and bounds in front of your colleagues, which really helps, especially when it comes to promotions. Explore the metaverse prior to you being told you have to for your job. Play around with it, order a headset, see how you like it, what you don't like about it. Get comfortable with it before you're told to. All right. Your boss and your coworkers, your colleagues, everyone's going to notice that you're leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else. And you're going to stand out for having an open mindset around this. If you're a business owner or an entrepreneur, remember, guys, those are two separate things. Specifically, if you're an entrepreneur, listen. All right, guys. There's a book that I'm reading right now. It came out in about 2000. It's called Good to Great by Jim Collins. And he analyzes good companies that made the leap to great companies, like Walgreens, for instance. That, feel free to Google the research, but a really good, solid company to a great company and an industry leader. One of the key components that he analyzed out of all these companies, and he spent 10 plus years analyzing these companies, right, over the course of 40 to 50 years of their history, going from good to great companies, is a key component is the leader and the technology. Okay, the technology. So these good to great companies took technology and rode it to expand their company. So in this case, if you're a business owner and entrepreneur, what you need to be doing right now is you need to be asking yourself, how can I use the metaverse to better service my customers and or lead my industry? Because this is the beginning. And if you get on the bus now rather than fighting it, you can potentially lead your industry quickly and better service your customers. For instance, I'm a business consultant and mentor, right? And an author and a speaker. So in the metaverse, I can host, as I've talked about prior, I can host speaking gigs. I can host workshops. I can host one-on-one meetings with people that are international in the metaverse in a elaborate environment like the Roman Colosseum or the Grand Canyon, right? I've already been thinking about these sorts of things. And if you're an entrepreneur or if you're a business owner or both, I would get the wheels turning and start doing some research on how you too can do this, because the last thing you want to do is get left behind. Okay, so we talked about what Gates had to say, my recommendations for remote employee and entrepreneurs. So, guys, in closing to this show, the third generation of the internet is here, and it's here to stay. The first generation was the internet. The second generation was social media. The third generation is the metaverse. And I really feel the less you fight this, the more you will prosper in the long term, especially if you're an entrepreneur. Guys, if you loved this show, please consider subscribing, smash that like button, and if you want to support the show, pick up a copy of my new book, Dominate Your Day, A High Performer's Guide to Winning at Life. Link will be in the show notes. I hope you guys enjoyed the show, and I'll catch you next time.